October 1962. The air inside the United States Weather Bureau station is a thick soup of anxiety, stale coffee, and the electric hum of machinery. Outside, the world holds its breath, teetering on the precipice of nuclear annihilation. The Cuban Missile Crisis is not a distant headline. It is a palpable presence in this room, a low thrum of dread beneath the clatter of teletype machines spitting out atmospheric data from across the globe. Here, amidst a sea of white men in crisp shirts and narrow ties, their faces etched with the gravity of the Cold War, sits June Bacon-Bercey. She is an anomaly, a statistical improbability in this bastion of white male science. She is the nation's first African-American woman to earn a degree in meteorology, a credential she fought for through a gauntlet of systemic prejudice and societal doubt. Every day she walks into this office is an act of defiance. Today, her defiance will be put to the ultimate test. She isn't looking at the political maps that dominate the news, the ones showing naval blockades and missile ranges. Her focus is on a different kind of map, one of invisible forces and atmospheric rivers. She pores over charts of barometric pressure, tropospheric wind shears, and, most critically, the high-altitude jet stream, that powerful meandering current of air that snakes around the planet. For weeks, she has been running calculations, feeding punch cards into primitive computers and checking the results by hand, her pencil scratching a frantic rhythm on graph paper. She is working on a model, a theoretical but terrifyingly plausible scenario. What happens the bomb drops? The prevailing military and public assumption, a comforting fiction, was that nuclear fallout was a localized problem, a hellish but contained circle of poison around ground zero. The vastness of the American continent was its own shield. June Bacon-Bercey's data told a different, more horrifying story. Her model wasn't just about wind direction. It was a complex, four-dimensional puzzle incorporating thermal updrafts from a blast, the variable density of radioactive isotopes like strontium-90 and iodine-131, and the unpredictable behavior of the tropopause, the atmospheric boundary that could either contain or release these particles into the global circulatory system of the jet stream. Her finger traces a path on the map, a ghostly finger of death. She has identified a critical confluence, a perfect storm of atmospheric conditions. A specific pattern, common in the autumn, would act as an express elevator and conveyor belt. It would lift the radioactive dust high into the stratosphere and then funnel it with chilling efficiency eastward. The fallout wouldn't just settle over a single state. It would ride the jet stream like a malevolent passenger, silently raining down its invisible poison on Chicago, on Detroit, on Cleveland, on New York City, on Boston. Millions of unsuspecting civilians, far from any conceivable target, would be in the direct path of a lethal plume. It was a flaw in the national defense narrative, a gaping hole in their understanding of the very air they breathed. Gathering her charts and her courage, she presents her findings to her superiors. The room, already tense, goes unnaturally quiet. The teletypes fall silent for a moment, as if the machines themselves are listening. She speaks with the clear, unwavering precision of a scientist who trusts her data. She explains the mechanisms, the atmospheric transport vectors, the undeniable conclusion. She is not presenting a theory. She is delivering a warning, a forecast of a potential national catastrophe. The silence that follows her presentation is heavy, suffocating. Then it's broken. Not by questions of clarification, not by requests for her data, but by a cascade of dismissive murmurs. The soft, condescending rustle of entrenched authority reasserting itself. A senior meteorologist clears his throat. "Your model is aggressive, Miss Bacon-Bercey. It doesn't account for particle decay over distance." Another chimes in, "This seems alarmist. The probability of this exact confluence of events is statistically negligible." The subtext is thick and suffocating. It's not just her science they are questioning, but her age, her gender, her race. The unspoken question hangs in the air, more toxic than any fallout. Who was this young black woman to challenge established protocols, to contradict the PhDs from MIT and Caltech, to suggest a vulnerability so profound it bordered on treasonous? Her irrefutable data had just collided with an immovable wall of bias, and in the chilling silence of that government office, a vital warning was being deliberately, systemically erased. Following that stark, unheeded warning, the institutional hammer fell with a speed and silence that was, in itself, a testament to its efficiency. There was no public hearing, no scientific review board, no formal debate over her atmospheric mottos. There was only a quiet, sterile meeting in a wood-paneled office a few weeks later. June Bacon-Bercey was handed an envelope. Inside, a letter, its typewritten words cold and impersonal. She found herself issuing a termination letter, a masterpiece of bureaucratic evasion citing vague departmental restructuring and unforeseen budgetary constraints. The reasons were a lie, a thin veneer of process over a deep well of prejudice. The real reason was her forecast. She had committed the unforgivable sin of being right when the powerful needed her to be wrong. She had spoken a truth that complicated their clean, controllable narratives of the Cold War, and she had done so from a position of perceived inferiority. The system, in its quiet, brutal way, was now correcting what it saw as an error. The truth of her dismissal rippled not through official channels, but through the whispers and back channels of the scientific community. It was a ghost story told among the few other marginalized scientists trying to gain a foothold. The evidence is not in a single signed confession, but in the damning pattern that followed. Her personal correspondence from that era, now held in archives, tells a story of closed doors and polite yet firm rejections. She applied for positions at other government agencies, at private research firms, at universities. The replies were a chorus of regret. Your qualifications are impressive, but the position has just been filled. We are not hiring in that specific field at this time. We will keep your resume on file. It was a classic unspoken blacklisting. Her name, associated with the alarmist fallout theory, had been flagged. In the tight-knit world of atmospheric science, where everyone knew everyone, a word from the right person at the Weather Bureau was a career death sentence. The message was broadcast with chilling clarity. Dissent, especially from a black woman, would be met with professional exile. This was not merely the act of a few biased individuals, it was the immune response of an entire system. We can see this through the lens of what sociologists now call epistemic injustice, the act of devaluing a person's knowledge and testimony based on their identity. In the 1960s, this was simply the default setting. Dr. Warren M. Washington, another pioneering African-American atmospheric scientist who began his career around the same time, spoke frequently of the invisible barriers and the constant need to prove oneself 2 or 3 times over. Bacon-Bercey's experience was a textbook case. Her meticulously calculated warning was not evaluated on its scientific merits, but on the identity of its author. The establishment couldn't fathom that a young black woman could see something that they, with all their institutional authority, had missed. To accept her warning would be to accept a fundamental challenge to their intellectual and social supremacy. It was easier and safer for the status quo to eliminate the messenger than to grapple with the terrifying message. The potential cost to public safety was an acceptable price to pay for maintaining the established order. The system wasn't just ignoring a warning, it was actively punishing the brilliance that produced it, ensuring that such an inconvenient truth from such an inconvenient source would not be spoken again. But could a mind that brilliant truly be silenced forever? Despite the professional sabotage, the closed doors, and the chilling silence that followed her dismissal, June Bacon-Bercey refused to be erased. The system that had ejected her assumed she would simply disappear, another promising career extinguished by the suffocating weight of prejudice. But it had fundamentally miscalculated the force of her intellect and the strength of her resolve. If the established halls of government science would not have her, she would find a new way to bring science to the people. She pivoted, breaking another significant barrier by becoming one of the first female television meteorologists in the United States, and certainly one of the first African American women in the role. This was not a lesser path, it was a strategic masterstroke. Every evening, she appeared in living rooms across the country, a calm, authoritative, and undeniably black female face explaining the complex dance of weather systems. She was not just reporting the 5-day forecast, she was conducting a massive, ongoing public science lesson, demystifying her field and normalizing the presence of women and people of color in STEM. Her refusal to be sidelined is meticulously documented in the archives of the very institutions that had once been ambivalent to her presence. Records from the American Meteorological Society show her relentless engagement. She didn't just join, she led. She was elected to serve on the AMS Board on Women and Minorities, where she became a fierce advocate for diversity and inclusion. In a move that stunned many of her contemporaries, she was later confirmed as the first African American woman to serve on the AMS Council, the society's governing body. She had been pushed out the front door of a government agency, only to re-enter the field through the very top of its professional organization. But her most profound act of defiance was yet to come. In 1977, her sharp mind and broad knowledge base earned her a spot on the television quiz show The $128,000 Question. She won, taking home a grand prize of $64,000, a staggering sum at the time. For Bacon-Bercey, this was not a personal windfall. It was ammunition. The very next year, in 1978, she used the entirety of her winnings to establish the June Bacon-Bercey Scholarship in Atmospheric Sciences, administered by the American Geophysical Union. The scholarship was a targeted, strategic intervention designed to dismantle the very barriers that had been placed in her own path. It was specifically created to support and encourage women with a preference for minority women to pursue careers in meteorology and atmospheric science. This was not charity, it was a revolutionary act. It was a direct counteroffensive against the systemic exclusion she had endured. She was building a pipeline, ensuring that the next generation of brilliant minds would not be so easily dismissed or erased. She was single-handedly creating the community she had been denied. Her career, forged in the crucible of Cold War paranoia and systemic racism, stands as an irrefutable testament to the power of a single, determined individual to reshape an entire field. The woman who was fired for her foresight ultimately became a forecaster of a different kind, predicting and then building a more inclusive and equitable future for science. Her legacy forces us to confront a deeply unsettling question. How many crucial warnings, how many life-saving discoveries are we still missing today simply because we refuse to listen to those on the margins? Remembering her story is not just about correcting the past, it's about safeguarding our future.